Laba diena! So in this episode I'm going to be making rather extravagant food trays out of these rotten alder cookies. I've done a cake stand out of alder cookie before, so this project may be a bit similar. On the other hand, it will have a lot of differences. So I have these two alder cookies and they are already different. This has some ant work and it's a bit more rotten, so probably it will have more contrast in the wood colors. This one is a bit more subtle, but also very unique. Since the pieces are already different, I guess I will use an opportunity and fill these with differently dyed epoxy. Okay, but first things first, let's clean this up and seal the undersides. So it's the next day and silicone is completely cured, and this sheet is polyethylene, so it's very convenient because I don't have to worry about epoxy sticking to it. And at this point I have two options. I can either fill both pieces all the way up with epoxy and hope that the bottom seal is completely tight and also that no air will get trapped into epoxy, or I can eliminate these two factors and make sure it won't happen. So what I mean by that is to mix a small batch of epoxy and kind of prime the inside of the wood. Let it cure, and once I will fill it all the way up, the epoxy won't be able to suck the air out of the primed wood. I hope that makes sense. Also, I get another benefit. I can spill some epoxy in each of these pieces, just a tiny amount, so it would seal the bottom completely. And once I will fill these voids all the way up, I won't have to worry about the leakage anymore. So let's prime these pieces. Couple of days passed since I primed these pieces, so the epoxy has fully hardened and now I can fill the cavities all the way up. Technically, I should scuff the surface of the hard epoxy and ensure a better bond with a new pour, but since these voids are very textured, I don't think I should worry about that. So let's fill this up. Unfortunately, this project gone a bit sideways. As you can see, epoxy overheated and therefore cracked. So I suppose I won't be making food trays out of these. But I'm definitely not dumping these. They certainly have some charm and I will keep it for myself. I will turn these into some light installation, wall art, or just side tables. But I still have to make those food trays. Luckily, I have more of these cookies. I have a new plan in mind, but before explaining that, I would like to fix these up. As you can see, I have some material to choose from. So my previous plan was to fill it up with epoxy and cut it into 2 cookies after the epoxy hardens. But since I had that failure, my new approach will be that I will cut it into 2 cookies before filling it up with epoxy. The only problem is that if I would cut it in this condition, probably I would get a ton of tear out in these rotten spots, and therefore I would lose a lot of character. And to prevent that, I will prime the inside just the same way I did for the previous cookies, and once that hardens, then I would be safe to cut it open. So let's choose 2 more candidates and prepare it for the cut. I have to confess, this project was abandoned for, I'm not sure, too long. There's a layer of dust on the pieces. But finally, I'm back to it, so let's put the ruined pieces aside for the next project and split these 2 cookies into 4. First of all, it's not my bandsaw. My colleague let me borrow it and it was still standing on the pallet, so bringing it here was super convenient. Well, anyway, I already ran into the problem because these cookies are too wide for the cutting height of the machine. Luckily, they are too wide for the food trays, so I guess I will trim some material off the sides until it fits into the bandsaw. It's the end of the day now, and it means that silicone will have plenty of time to cure during the night before pouring the epoxy. See you tomorrow!